Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker, and my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way of saying seize the day, seize the opportunity. Well, from time to time, I issue myself a Take the Doughnut challenge. And this year, my challenge to myself is do a Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Find people from all over the internet who love this show and start conversations and analyze the show and figure out what this was all about. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and it is here. And so that, of course, is a setup. And today we're going to be talking about Halt and Catch Fire Season 1, Episode 3. This one was called High Plains Hardware, and it was originally aired June 15th, 2014. In the first couple episodes, I didn't mention who directed and wrote them, so I'm going to start doing that here. This episode was directed by Karen Kusama, and it was written by Jason Cahill. And just to go back, the first two episodes were both directed by Juan Jose Campanella and written by the creators, Christopher Cantwell and Christopher C. Rogers. Here's the description. Gordon and Cameron continue to work on their new portable PC, but the problems it brings begin to pile up for them. Meanwhile, Joe and Bosworth try to attain the necessary funds in order to keep their project going. First of all, so a few general notes. Actually, the first general note is as I was starting to record, I was just about to hit record on this, and I heard a bird start to chirp outside my window, which is hysterical because if you just rewatched this episode going into this podcast, a bird chirping outside your window is a very like fortuitous thing to happen on this podcast. Don't know if you can hear it, but that may be something that we contend with, and it would be very appropriate for this one. Okay, so normally I begin with a scene by scene breakdown, but I'm a little bit fired up because as I was doing, there were a few things that I wanted to research before I hit record on this podcast to start talking about the episode. And in my process of doing the research, I started to come across some critical reviews of this particular episode. So major outlets that were talking about their assessments of this episode. And I have to say, like, they were not necessarily flattering for this particular episode, and I don't get it. I don't understand what people are expecting from the beginning of the first season of a show. You have to start the story somewhere. You have to establish characters. And if anything, we just did that, brought them crashing down, and we need to start rebuilding them again. One of the things that I didn't dive too deeply into those reviews because that wasn't what I was trying to research. But one thing that I'm seeing come up is that people are trying to compare this show to Mad Men. Okay, that's fair. Mad Men was towards the end of its run when this show was starting. This show is not Mad Men. It is not Mad Men. First of all, some of us don't like Mad Men. I did watch the show. I thought the show was fine. I thought it was done well. I didn't connect with any of the characters. I didn't particularly like the ending. It was fine, but there's got to be something more out there for a person like me who didn't love Mad Men. So if you're telling me that this show starts off like Mad Men, I believe you. Sure, that's great. But again, it starts off like a story. It's a story that needs to start somewhere. If you remember, in the first episode, Joe, who obviously has these machinations, he has this idea of what he's trying to do. He is assertively infiltrating people's lives in order to bring together a team. He alone brings together all the people needed on this project. Our entire cast of this show comes together because of Joe. And all of the other people in the show have their skill set. Boz has the business acumen. Gordon is the engineer. Donna knows about the hardware, and she's sort of on the side supporting with this at times. Cameron knows the programming piece of this. She's working on the code. Everybody has their sphere. Joe put them all together. And they made big strides. They've, achieved the possibility of doing their project. which was the first hurdle they needed to overcome. And now they're doing that. And they've, in the last episode, been really smacked down by IBM, who came in and rated all their clients, or a whole lot of their clients, and put them on the ropes. They're in a really bad position here because they don't have the money coming in, and they're still trying to get this project done. They still have to get this project done because that is part of how they legally get out of the bind they're in. So I think of this in a way like, like any good sports movie, you get the athlete together with the coach, and they're training, and maybe they have the first game or fight or whatever they have, and it doesn't go that well, and it really sobers everybody and makes them think like, oh, can we actually do this? And then you're going to get to the hardcore training montage and some sort of like motivational speech, and you're working towards the big finish. This show is going to go for 40 episodes. This is going to go for four seasons. So we have to begin somewhere. And the more firmly you establish who these people are, the more we're going to feel invested when things happen to them. Not a lot of people necessarily talk about how we feel as viewers when IBM comes in and raids their clients. But that is a major setback. And there will be many major setbacks in this show that make us feel something. So why does this, for me, not feel like as much? Well, it was 2 episodes in, and we're just getting going with people. So obviously, the more time you have to build these characters, to build the connection with these people, to build the stakes in their relationship, the stakes in their business dealings, you're going to get the more exciting moments in the show from that. So everybody be patient. This story is starting where it needs to start. The other thing that I think is worth saying, because this is another comment that was coming up in some of the reviews, and it's something that I'm starting to see echoed in a few people's thoughts on season 1, is that people feel like, Cameron, she's just, like, what is she? She's not super developed. People don't really talk about this very much. Cameron's young. Cameron is, so what is she, 21, 20, somewhere, in the early 20s. She was towards the end of college when Joe recruited her. So that would probably put her around that age. Joe, I believe, is in his mid-30s when we start this show. There's not a lot of conversation about the pretty huge age gap between those characters. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a little nervous for Cam when we start this show, because there is a pretty big difference between, let's say, 21 and 35-ish. There's a difference in terms of what's happening in your particular life experience in those decades. And Joe, Joe's gotten into his mid-30s and he's got some baggage still, and Cam probably has some baggage, and she's just entering into figuring out how to work through that. So, Cam is very young. And I would say Gordon and Donna, we know there are going to be time jumps that happen in this show. There will be a point when we get Gordon celebrating his 40th birthday. So I think Gordon's a little younger than Joe, but probably is closer to the age of Joe than to Cameron. So Cameron is, she's individuating, she's figuring out what it means to be an adult. She's got her very first job. She's getting her first paycheck in this episode. She's really, she really has to figure out what she's going to be doing in the world and how she's going to live. She's figuring everything out right now for the very first time. So these are some things to factor in. If Cameron doesn't seem that developed, how developed were you at 21? You tell me. It's part of a journey. Some of us are, more mature than others. And I feel like Cameron's probably lived a lot of life for the age that she's at. And it's totally okay to have all of these characters develop. That's my soapbox. Look, I feel like I need to defend them because it's season 3. It's episode 3 of season 1 in this show. And if you're going to do a good story, you have to build it. It doesn't just come out fully formed. Having said that, I'm going to do a scene by scene breakdown here. I have a ton of notes, and what felt really interesting to me as I was writing them, because my notes are pretty factual, like this is what's happening, but there's a lot of stuff that I was starting to formulate opinions about, but it's not all the way there yet. So I'm going to be talking it out and coming to some conclusions about this as I'm discussing this episode. And we'll see how that all comes together, because I think there was a lot of really interesting stuff in here. And there was definitely a lot of interesting camera work that I really had not appreciated on any of my previous watches. So we're going to start in the Clark yard. Gordon is staring down at this poor broken little bird. This bird is not well. It's had a major accident, and it doesn't look like it's going to make it. Donna asks if it's alive. You can hear the girls in the background. They're freaking out about the bird. And then we're going to see Brian, the neighbor, the guy who works with Gordon and is also the neighbor. And he's just looking at it and saying, better watch out for mites. Brian is the guy who notices all the problems, but never seems to have a solution. And we're going to see a lot of that from him in this episode. So first things first, Brian's like, watch out for the mites. Thanks, Brian. We'll watch out for that. Donna's saying, okay, what can we do? Should we get it some water? What can we do for this bird? Gordon's like, I don't know. I think we might be beyond that. I think I should take it to the vet. So Donna establishes, and this is just a tiny bit of exposition here, Gordon's car is at the shop. They've currently got one car. They both have to get to their jobs. Plus, Gordon wants to go to the vet. There are not enough cars to go around here. So she says the girls have to get to school. Brian's standing right there. He offers to drive Gordon to work. Donna's like, great, love your work. She rushes off to get things done. Brian continues to look at this bird. He says, poor sucker. Well, let go, let God. Gordon continues to stare down at the bird. And Brian says, hey, don't sweat today. From where we left off, we understand that Cardiff Electric is in pretty dire straits financially after, IBM took a whole bunch of their clients. So something's going to have to be done about this. And Brian alludes to the fact that it's Gordon that's going to be doing something about that, or at least Gordon's one of the people who has to do something about that. So, we're opening up. We've got this sick bird. Does this sick bird represent Cardiff Electric? Does it represent Gordon himself? Who does it represent here? Brian's comment at the beginning of this episode, I think, is sort of an interesting indication of how this episode is going to end for him, where he's just like, poor sucker, let go, let God. And that's where we start. But to me, it feels like the bird is more of a symbol than of the bird itself. What is it a symbol of? I'm still working that out. So we're going to head over to the office. Cam is sleeping, or she has been sleeping, but there's going to be somebody coming through to vacuum, and the sound of the vacuum is going to wake her up. And then we're going to hear the song, Our Friends Electric, which is a very synthesized song. We hear that as Cameron's waking up. She's sniffing her clothes, checking to see if it's okay, because, there's not really laundry facilities at Cardiff Electric, and that seems to be where she's living right now. We're going to then cut to, while the song is still playing, we're going to cut to Joe in his underwear. He is in his apartment, looking out that big, beautiful window. He's got a great view. And this is going to be, this is his ritual. He gets up in the morning, he's standing in his white underwear, and he's just looking out at the view. It's part of how he wakes up. That's part of how he starts his day. So on this particular day, he's set a lineup of computers out on one of the tables in his apartment, and he's just sort of looking at each of them. I was able to make out what two of them were. Took me a little bit of research. Again, I'm not a tech expert. If you are, bonus points if you can tell me what the first one is, because I really couldn't figure that out. The second one in the lineup is the Osborne Executive. The third one in the lineup is it looks like it's the Tandy TRS 80 Model 100. That's what I found so far. So the point of it is he's looking at these computers and they're all kind of big. They're a bit bulky. They're a bit large. And they kind of look like an evolution just sitting there, but they're an inspiration for him, but he's trying to do something evolved from that. We also have him, as this song, Our Friends Electric, is playing, we're going to cut over to the camera's going to go over to an old boombox that's playing the song. I guess the song is meant to be diegetic, playing in the scene. So we're going to get a close-up on it. We're going to see the lights flashing. My dad had a stereo like this in our living room. It wasn't exactly like this. This is more of a boombox, but I remember he had this really fancy stereo system in our living room when I was growing up. And I remember watching the lights go up and down. And in the song, as the scene is closing out, the lyrics are, mine's broken down and now I've no one to love. Ugh. Which, I mean, from where Joe ended the last episode, he is ultimately the cause of a whole lot of people not having job security right now. And a lot of people aren't feeling great about Joe. So that's where he's starting out. He continues to stare out at his view. We are now going to cut to the office, and Gordon is talking to some poor employee. He's like, I mean, it's not your fault. It's like when an early snow freezes an orange grove and a farmer has to find another way to deliver the juice. Even if every snowflake is unique, like you. What is Gordon saying? It's so funny. And then another employee comes storming in, a guy named Randy. He storms into this office, interrupts whatever is happening right now, the orange grove and the unique snowflake of it all. Randy comes in. He's like, I have to wait in line. I have to wait in line till 11:45. I'll wait in line for things I want, but not to be fired by you or Joe. And the guy who was sitting in the office is like, wait, you were firing me? His alarm bell goes off. But it was not clear to him where Gordon was going with this Orange Grove snowflake business. And to be fair, Gordon was really struggling there. I mean, if you want a masterclass in how not to fire somebody, it's what Gordon was doing. All right. I can't even give you all the technical reasons why that wouldn't be right. It's just very clearly wrong. Okay. Like, don't go into metaphors. Don't go into orange groves and farmers and unique snowflakes. Tell somebody they're fired. It's so hard for him. This was not part of Gordon. This was never part of Gordon's job. Gordon very recently was just the guy who sat on his desk and poured a ton of sugar into his coffee and got up again the next day and did the same thing. And now he's in this leadership position. He's got his own office, but tell him what he's also won: firing a whole bunch of people because of Joe. So Randy, he's written his own reference letter. He's sort of like giving the Italian curse to Gordon and Cardiff Electric. He's like, the PC Vision Quest, this whole thing, it's going to crash and burn. Randy leaves. Gordon he looks pained. The first employee, who had already been sitting down with him, looks stunned because now he knows why he's in this office to begin with. So we're now going to switch over into we're going to see another room in the office that has not yet been named. Joe is talking to the remaining members of this team, and he's trying to give him a pep talk. He's like, you know what? That 28 pounds from previous computers is too much. He's got a computer right on his desk or on this table in the room, and he's looking at it. He's like, this is too heavy. But this is what other companies are doing. He kicks the computer to the ground because he's going to destroy, right? He kicks this computer to the ground. He holds up a briefcase and he is going to issue the plan, you know, like he did with Gordon and Cameron in a previous episode where he said 2 times as fast, 1/2 the price. That's the mission, right? Well, the mission now, he's holding up the briefcase and he's saying by the end of this year, Cardiff will release a portable PC. It's going to have 2 disk drives. It's going to have an integrated screen and a keyboard, and the whole thing is going to weigh at most 15 pounds. Everybody laughs. All the engineers in the room laugh. They're like, that's not a thing, sir. You just hear the peanut gallery complaining. You don't necessarily make out any one thing anybody's saying, but they're coming up with some pretty obvious reasons why, from an engineering standpoint, what he's saying is not a thing you can do. And then, you know, they're obviously very rattled because most of their team, their fellow workmates, were just fired. So, or they were farmers' oranges groves out of the room. They however that happened. And one of them's like, hey, you know who was good with screens? Randy, the guy you let go. And remember all those other guys you let go? They might have been able to help with this project. Joe, this isn't the spirit that he was looking for. Joe wants the guys who want to get this job done. He pulls Gordon outside. He says, these are the guys? These are the guys you chose? Gordon's like, yeah, these are the guys. After I let go 46 other people this morning, that's not something that I'm qualified to do. That's not something that was ever my job before. And hey, if they're a little reluctant here, it's because they're just thinking about the laws of physics, which you don't seem to be respecting very much with your orders that you're giving us. Gordon fights for his team. He says, and it's, you know, the most assertive he's able to be in this moment, the most assertive we've seen him to this point. These are the guys that have microprocessor experience. This is my team. You're going to need to deal with that. So we're seeing that tension. Gordon is doing his very best to clean up after Joe right now and try to fulfill Joe's expectations and the challenges that Joe is putting on the table. Now we're going to go back over to Cam, she's got her headphones on. She's listening to music. We're hearing Advice by Big Boys is playing. She's walking around the office gathering stuff from all of the desks of the people who have been let go. She's just scavenging. She's just grabbing things. She wants to make her space feel lived in. Maybe she likes the inspiration of the other people, or just the feeling of messiness. And so she's collecting stuff. And the song, again, diegetic, it's playing in her headphones. And we're hearing lyrics like, and they tell you you're a mess, and they tell you how to dress, and they tell you what you found, and they tell you about your sound. Advice, it's good for you. Advice, I don't need your advice. You can screw your advice. Am I right, Cameron? So Cameron, she's going to grab somebody's bowling shoes off of their desk. And employee number 1, the guy who was in Gordon's office being very badly let go, he's like, you know, you could just wait until we've left the building. He's just asking for a little humanity. He's like, could you just be more humane about this? But Cameron's got her headphones in and she can't even hear it. She just says, thank you, because she doesn't need his advice, frankly. So we go back to Cameron's office, which is basically she's overtaken the basement and is now decorated with stuff from all the people's desks. And she's working on the code, but she is struggling. Cameron is going to spend the whole episode in some sort of a programmer's block. And she's working on some things and then she just types in not good enough. And I was thinking about this, you know, Cameron has always, my understanding of Cameron is that she's always been incredibly talented. She's probably been the smartest person she ever knew when it came to coding, the smartest person she ever encountered when it came to coding. She was the smartest person at her college when it came to programming. She's been unparalleled, but she's also never really been relied on for a project. She's part of a team and everybody needs her to solve the problems they're putting in front of her. And nobody's ever counted on her like that from what we can see. She's been operating on the fringe. She's been peripheral, but just sort of analyzing other people's work and being idealistic about the industry and, coming up with her own things on the side. But I mean, Cardiff needs her, and they need her to figure out how to do the code for this machine and how to fix the problems that are being presented to her. And she has to deal with pressure, like proper external pressure for the first time, maybe. So she's having some creative blocks here, and she, again, is going to spend most of the episode, if not the entire episode, in that space, trying to figure out how to work through it, because she probably doesn't have a lot of practice working through blocks of this nature. We're going to go back to the hardware team. So we're going to get Gordon and Brian, neighbor Brian, and they're trying to figure out, just to solve one of the many problems that's been presented by Joe's challenges. So they're trying to figure out in this moment, how are you going to add speed to this machine without adding heat? Where can you put a heat sink? Again, we're trying to keep this thing 15 pounds or under. One of the things that we're discovering here is Gordon is trying to find solutions. Brian is only presenting problems. Oh, but we can't do this. We can't do this. We can't do this. Here's why you can't do this. No, you can't do this either. Brian is an average thinker. Gordon has to solve problems. Brian is just there to present them and to tell Gordon why all of his proposed solutions won't work. So, we're getting this dynamic. I don't know if Gordon has really clocked that's what's happening here. I think in this moment, he thinks Brian's being helpful and informative to him and trying to help him. The guys in the room start talking. What should we call this room? They're coming up with a couple ideas, and somebody says something about, we'll probably kill each other here. Gordon says, that's it. It's the kill room. Everybody seems to like it. So then we've now got a name for this room that all these engineers are going to be in. And it is the kill room. Okay, so now we're going to go over to Boz's office, because we need an update on where Joe and Boz are in this moment. And, probably not in the best spot. I mean, Boz was doing just fine until Joe came along, and now he's had to lay off a whole bunch of people, and they're still suffering financially even after that. So Boz returns to his office, and Joe is there. I think it's Boz's office. They're there. He's there with a guy named Aaron Littlefield. Aaron Littlefield is a venture capitalist, and Joe and Aaron just went for lunch, and Boz separately went for lunch, and Boz returns and, oh, here, meet Aaron. And, Boz, you can see Boz is like, why is this the first time hearing about this guy, Aaron? And he can't say it because Aaron's in the room. So, Joe had him fly over from New York, and this is all a big surprise to Boz. Boz doesn't really want to meet him. This isn't a connection that Boz had. It's a connection that Joe had. I'm not really sure if Boz wants to meet more people that know Joe that he doesn't know. And so Boz is like, hey, I have to clear this with Nathan. Joe's like, don't worry, I already did that. Oh, okay. So Boz is feeling very undercut in this moment. And we can see that he's prepared to meet Aaron, but he's annoyed about it. And, what is overstepping here? Have we ever properly defined what Boz's role is and what Joe's role is? We've given Joe an introduction and a title, and Boz has a title, but how do they play together here? What does that really look like? So now we're going to go over to Donna's office. Donna is currently in conversation with her boss, a guy named Hunt. We're going to learn actually quite a lot in this scene. So first of all, we continue to get examples of how Donna knows her stuff. She's good at what she does. She's been identifying bugs in PCBs. Hey, whatever that means, if you know technical stuff, feel free to tell us anything that we need to know. She's going to recommend a recall on a certain number of machines. And she also hey, I've been doing a little other digging and I'm going to suggest a solution to fix our bouncing keyboard problem. Hunt's like, no, 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 it's not our purview. That's not our thing. But regarding the recall, regarding the PCBs bugs, any chance you can write up a report for that for my call with Mark tomorrow? So that is something that he's trying to get done. But as all of this is happening, so I think from that element, we're learning, okay, she's got this boss named Hunt. She's very smart and very knowledgeable about what she does, and she has opinions that are respected by Hunt. Whether or not she's getting credit for them, I don't know, but she is presenting information that is very valuable to the company. And she's got an expertise here. But in addition to all of that, we start getting some conversation between Donna and Hunt. He's asking about her parents. He's saying, yeah, I never did see a set of parents who came to a game to cheer on a xylophonist before. Okay, so they have a history. We established that they were in high school together. Donna's going to ask about his wife, whose name is Martine. He's like, how's she doing here? I guess Hunt recently started in this office, and he's like, we've moved around a little bit more than she's comfortable with. And I think she wants to settle down. Donna says, well, it's just not how you climb the ladder. And so they take a moment to pause on that and think, who would you ever believed in high school that we'd be talking about climbing ladders? So Hunt says, yeah, I would have believed it with you. I mean, we all knew you weren't cut out for band. You were just marking time. That feels like a music joke to me, or a music reference. So, okay, so she was just marking time. So he's sort of, lifting her up and making her feel good. And, there's this connection that they have, this historic connection. They knew each other. And as they're wrapping things up on the personal front, she's leaving the room. He's like, hey, by the way, like, I do have that call with Mark tomorrow. It would be really helpful if you can get that report on the thing that you were saying. So once again, I'm not so sure that this report is going to be something that's credited that, oh, this came from Donna. Probably, Hunt's looking to get her knowledge so that he can share it on the phone with Mark, but we don't really know for sure. So now we're going to skip back over to Cameron, who is still frustrated at her computer. We've got a blinking cursor situation. Cam has solved this in one particular way in the past, so she's going to make a call up to Joe. Debbie, the secretary, is going to answer and recognize Cam's voice. She's like, Cam? Cam hangs up. Ugh, bad idea. I'm undoing my bad idea. I'm not executing it. I'm hanging up the phone. Joe's busy anyway right now. Joe and Boz and Aaron are currently in a meeting, and we're really seeing a mismatch of company profiles here. There's not a similar value set and way of doing business between Cardiff and the company that Aaron represents. Joe is trying to sell to Aaron. He's saying, hey, Aaron, we're going to grow. There's a lot of space in this, in what we're doing. Aaron's like, you just got your butt handed to you by IBM. I mean, your cash is probably running out, right? You had cash from the systems packages, but that's probably running out. You're in maybe a bit of a desperate situation, right? Joe and Boz are exchanging looks, and Aaron's like, okay, so the way this works is if we partner with you, we audit your books. Not only do we audit your books, but we send in a guy. Boz, you would report to this guy named Roger. Roger will do a full review. Boz is sitting here thinking, oh, so I'm now going to report to somebody that Joe's brought in. How did all this happen? And so Joe's saying, it's just an option we discussed. Boz is like, at lunch, maybe? The lunch that I wasn't invited to, that you two did alone. So Joe's like, okay, well, how about this? Like, what if instead of all that, we just did like a weekly call, right? Instead of having Roger just shadowing all of this and overseeing it all. Aaron's like, back up a second. What's your plan even? How are you marketing this? How are you going to get your clients back? Talk to me about why this is a good option for me. And Boz is saying, oh, no, you see, because Joe wants to change the game altogether. He wants to take the machine to the people. We're going to be ringing doorbells is what we're going to be doing. And I think Boz is leveling this up because he knows this is not what Aaron wants to hear. And he's really going to try to make himself sound as not appropriate a fit for Aaron as possible. Boz is like, we're thinking mom and pop stores. We're thinking county fairs. Hey, I know you're from New York, but like in Texas, that's how we do it. We've got heart, that can do Texas spirit, y'all. Aaron isn't really into the whole can do Texas spirit stuff. He'd rather see the paperwork and the business plan. So we're going to cut from that to Aaron and Boz and Joe coming back out of that office. Doesn't look like this deal is headed in the right direction. Boz is going to give Aaron his card. If you ever want to come visit me at the ranch. Aaron's not interested. Joe tries to see if he's still on the hook a little bit. Aaron's like, nope, not interested. And Joe and Boz just exchange glances. They're not particularly happy with each other because, Boz did everything he could to tank this in the most subtle way possible. And Joe did all of this behind Boz's back. So this doesn't seem to be working very well now, does it? Now, so we're going to go over to the kill room for another thing that doesn't really seem to be going that well, but I don't know if Gordon's fully picked up on it right now. Brian is looking around. It's still light out. And, Brian's like, is it maybe time to let the guys go? Gordon's like, you mean before midnight? It's still light out. So Gordon was thinking that his team, there'd be quite a few hours still to go. Brian says, you know what? It's been a hard day. Give yourself some goodwill here. Gordon lets the team go. He listens to Brian. He is still trusting Brian and Brian's advice. And Brian thinks, give the team a break, shall we? But Brian's going to stick around, and Gordon and Brian, we're going to see them at a vending machine, a community vending machine in the office. Gordon's putting some money in. He gets, his drink comes down. Brian is continuing to just shoot down everything. He's continuing to just comment about everything that can't be fixed. And Cam interrupts. She walks in because she wants a drink. She buys her drink. She goes, she picks it up. She also picks up Gordon's drink, which he never actually took from the vending machine. And she walks away with both drinks. And Gordon is distracted because he's trying to get her to answer some questions like, how long before you think you'll have your piece of this? We need information from you to actually properly design the machine. She's like, I'm not even supposed to be talking with you. Walks away with his drinks. And Brian's like, okay, this is going to be a long night. I'll get some pizza. Cam is left. Gordon just looks and he just says in the most pathetic way possible, like, she took my soda. It was so pathetic. I mean, Gordon is himself a wounded bird here. Maybe the wounded bird is just Gordon. I don't know. It's also its own thing. But Gordon is struggling. We'll see if that holds up by the time I get to the end of this episode. We're going to go back to the Clark household. Donna's mom is there with Donna. Donna's, washing up some dishes from dinner, and mom has gotten the girls. So she found this headstone, this little toy headstone, and it plays Chopin's Funeral March. It's a Japanese toy, and she got it for the girls to maybe comfort them a little bit about the bird. And we find out, and this is actually an important detail, Donna's dad runs a catalog business. It's a successful business, and he does a lot of work with the Japanese because they produce toys such as this. So mom says to Donna, okay, just don't tell Gordon that the gift was from us. I know he doesn't like that. I guess we're getting a feeling that there's been some charity in the past. We also know that there was a point when Donna's dad stopped supporting them. So there's probably some tension around money between and gifting. between Gordon and Donna's parents. Gordon is still working late. Donna's mom says, well, make sure he does the dishes sometimes. I don't want you to be worn down to a nub. And, Donna's mom hasn't said anything overtly exactly critical of Gordon here, but I don't think Donna's mom likes Gordon one bit. I think that Donna's mom thinks Donna can do way better. And she just says all these little things that you can read between the lines fairly easily. If you've ever had a person in your life that did this, maybe it's easier to read between those lines, but I mean, she's saying a lot of things here that's like, are you sure that you're the best version of yourself right now with this Gordon? So that's happening. And her mom switches gears. She says, okay, well, how's T.I.? How's Hunt doing? Okay, so her mom knows Hunt. There's this familial connection there. How's his foreign wife? Donna's like, she's Canadian. And Donna's mom was like, well, she has to figure out maybe she needs to do 4th of July. She needs to figure out our customs. So is Donna's mom saying maybe you and Hunt are a better match here than you are with your existing significant others? Donna is saying, well, he's on the rise in the company. If he does a good job, they'll probably ship him overseas at some point too. And her mom starts listing off all of these places, Vienna, like mostly places in Europe. She's saying, can you imagine, going off to one of those places? And Donna's sort of looking off into the distance. Donna does not shut her mom down for any of this. Does she not shut her mom down because she a little bit agrees with her mom on everything her mom says? Does she not shut her mom down because there's a strange financial tension between her and her parents? What is the reason for it? But Donna has sat there and taken a lot of not so flattering things about her current life and Gordon. And her mom is definitely nudging the Hunt angle, and Donna just accepts it for what it is. And so that, in a way, I suppose Donna's mom, there's a little bit of a parallel there with how Donna's mom is being with her and how Brian is being with Gordon. I know the nature of it is different, but they're both like kind of poking them. Okay, so we're going to go over to a restaurant. Joe is sitting down with Nathan Cardiff. Joe's saying, we need smart money. We need a name. We need something. Nathan's like, you know what? I appreciate what you were doing. I think you were right, but I think Boz was right too. So Nathan is mediating here, maybe, except it would appear that it was Boz that called Nathan to get this situation together. So Boz has a much stronger relationship with Nathan than Joe does for pretty obvious reasons. There's a lot of history there. Joe came in and is currently putting the company in a problematic position. Boz called Nathan. He, called Daddy, and he's asking for help. He's asking for support. And that's absolutely what's going to happen here. Nathan isn't so much there to mediate as much as to put Joe in his place and make sure Joe knows what everybody's roles are in this company. So Boz comes over with drinks. He's got a couple scotches for him and Nathan, and he got a white wine for Joe. He just took a guess, but he's making Joe an outsider. And so Nathan is going to sort of lay down the law. He's like, look, only one boss dick can swing here. Joe, you're the vision guy. You're great with the vision. That's your job. My job is to sit back and collect the checks. I don't want to have an active role in this company. John makes the financial decisions. Am I right? John. We agreed? John makes the financial decisions. Joe looks at him and says, agreed. Is he happy about it? No. So Nathan says, all right, then we're agreed. Now I'm going to go ahead and set you up with Louise Rutherford. That's the name that we need, that you said we needed, right? Boz says, hey, she's local. We're not going to have any Rogers involved overseeing our work, or specifically me. Nathan and Boz are going to go ahead and order some steaks for lunch, and Joe's going to say, I'll have the same. He's trying to get onto the same page as them. Does he fully agree with the directions they're heading in? Doesn't seem like it. Doesn't, you know, they're all tacitly saying yes to each other at the table, but it doesn't feel good for any of them right now. So we're going to go back over to the office. Gordon and Brian, they're still in the office. They're working. It's late at night. Brian is continuing to just shoot down every single idea. And he gets to the point where he is almost seeming like Gordon's boss. He's like, no, what happens is tomorrow we sit down with Joe and we tell him it can't be done. It's too tall an order what he's asked for. I'll be there for moral support. But he is speaking to Gordon like he's in charge. He is not in charge. Brian, you're not in charge. Gordon is still not, I don't know that he's even really noticing that there's a power dynamic at play here. I think he still thinks Brian's being in some way helpful to him or protective of him. And I think part of it is that Gordon is very well aware that from an engineering standpoint, from a physics standpoint, Joe issued a very tall order and they only have so much time to get this done. And, you know, Brian's not wrong. He's just not helpful at all. Brian's not helpful at all. So we're going to go back to Cameron. She is continuing to have trouble, but Joe got the message from Debbie and he's going to call over to Cameron. He's like, you know, how's it going? Because you're kind of a bottleneck in this situation. She's like, nope, it's fine. Totally fine. I'm fine. It's fine. He says, do I need to come down there? He knows what that means. He knows what he's offering. She knows what that means. She says, nope. And then she just hangs up on him. She hangs up. Joe's still holding the phone. Joe's hanging on to this. Okay, we're going to go back to the Clark kitchen. Gordon and Donna are both working at the table on their respective things. She's probably working on a report for Hunt to give to Mark or to share with Mark. And Gordon is working on the design. And he's scrawling some things out on paper. He's so sorry he missed her mom. She's like, no, you're not. Stop it. He's like, well, at least the bird's gone. She's like, yeah, but the girls are upset. I was confused about this. What happened to the bird? We're going to see the bird later in the bush. This is one piece that what am I missing here? Maybe somebody can tell me what I'm missing. He says the bird's gone. Does he just think the bird's gone? Does he think somebody took care of the bird magically, but nobody did? I'm not really sure. I'm guessing that's what this is. If I had to guess, I'd say he just assumes something magically happened with the bird and he doesn't have to worry about it anymore. So Donna still has a bunch of work, but she can see what Gordon's working on. She's kind of intrigued by it. And he's like, hey, you want to maybe help with this? She's like, no, I've got so much to do. And he starts to take it back. And I understand. But she can't help herself. And she has some very easy, very quick fixes she can think of. And remember, a whole team of Gordon's best guys could not come up with a solution Donna dreams up in 20 seconds. She just starts drawing arrows. Well, if you move this over here and this over here and this over here, she folds the paper in half and says, you layer it, you piggyback it. Gordon's like, oh, it was right there the whole time. We just, it's 2 layers. Oh my God. So he's now thinking in a totally new direction. He seems to be pretty excited about that. Okay, so cut from there. We're going to go to the office, the Cardiff office at night, the general work area where all the cubicles are. And it's dark in the office. Cameron is dancing to a song on her headphones. Again, another diegetic song. This one is from it's called Germ-Free Adolescence. And she's dancing around the office. She's wearing the bowling shoes. She's doing little leaps. She's spinning around. She spins and then she sees Boz's office. She's like, So she walks into Boz's office and she goes right up to his desk and she's tinkering with some things on his desk and she grabs a pen, but Boz is there. Boz is actually on the couch on the other side of his office. She hasn't seen him. He comes out of the shadows and he's like, what's happening here? And so now she turns around, she puts the pen that she just stole in the back of her pants. She puts that safely tucked away. Boz comes up to her. He says, those Lloyd's shoes that you're wearing? She says, who's Lloyd? No idea who Lloyd is. Boz says, yeah, he's a bowler, Lutheran, has 3 kids. I just fired him this morning. So do you think it's a good idea to be walking around in a dead man's shoes? And he's continuing to walk, and he walks around behind his desk so that he reasserts the power position here. This is my office. This is my desk. So Cam starts to leave. She takes off the bowling shoes. And Boz says, hey, hold up a minute here. Where are you headed, young lady? The choice to say young lady here, I think, is really interesting because I'm going to really grow to love the relationship between Boz and Cam. And I think that him saying young lady is a very he's being polite and respectful to her, but he's also being sort of a little fatherly in that expression, even though I don't know that I'm feeling love from them in this moment, right? I think the expression young lady, it's not exactly, it doesn't feel pejorative the way he's using it. It feels a little bit like this is a teachable moment from Boz to Cam. It's like, so this is your first job, right? I mean, you're rooting around the office after hours. It's not really how we do it in the workforce. Cam is trying to lie her way out of it. She's like, well, I heard money was tight, so I just thought I'd shut off the lights for you all. Boz says, uh-huh. So then he's looking at a piece of paper. He's like, can you help me with something here? He redirects the conversation for a moment. He says, what's the difference between go to and go sub? Very technical thing. She's like, oh, okay. And she comes closer to him. She walks back towards the desk and she explains it. But her answer doesn't make a lick of sense to Boz. Boz says that what you just said makes no sense to me. Cam says, well, yeah, I mean, this is all hard at first. Boz says, if it weren't for Joe, I'd be home right now. He's different, huh? Cam freezes up. She doesn't respond. I don't know that she knows. I think she's wise to know she doesn't really know all of the politicking happening. And so she just stays quiet. Boz is going to send Cam away. And she's going to, pick up the shoes that she had taken off, which are currently on the floor. Boz says, hey, one more thing, Cam. You can work here as late as you like. You cannot live here. So we've got the kill room in the morning. And Gordon is explaining to this whole team about this layered motherboard approach. It's this innovative idea that none of them had come up with, and they're impressed by it. They're inspired by it. They're like, okay, we can work with this. They're starting to come up with ideas on how they could execute this. It's all going really well until Brian comes in. And Brian's like, wait a minute. So first of all, Gordon's going to start by saying, hey, I need a ride home today. Still dealing with the car in the shop situation. But Brian's like, but what is this? What is happening with what's on the board? What did you just write with the 2 layers? He shoots down the idea immediately. He's like, do you think Intel or AMD is going to reroute their assembly lines for us? This is a big ask. And Gordon's hearing it. Gordon's hearing Brian. Brian's like, look, I just think that if we reinvent this wheel, we're going to end up with a square wheel. I'm here. I'm thinking of you, Gordon. I'm thinking of you here, but it's your call. This is all your call. It's a pretty manipulative way of talking to him. And I don't know if he's doing it because he's trying to be manipulative or because he's just a guy who thinks everything is impossible and refuses to come up with solutions. Gordon hears him out. He calls off the whole team. Let's go back to the original solution. And he's going to have to talk to Joe. He's just going to have to talk to Joe. He doesn't really want to do it, but he's going to have to do it. So now we're going to go back to Cam and her blinking cursor. She's still at her desk. She still cannot come up with answers. She's sharpening the heck out of every pencil in her office. She opens up her check and she got $382.67. It's payday. This is great. I'm not sure if this is her first check. I said it was her earlier, but it could be her second. But anyway, it's payday. And she's just going to walk right out of the office because she's going to go spend this money. So we're going to hear the song First Time from the Boys playing. We're going to get a lot of punk songs, a lot of late 70s punk songs for Cameron in this episode. She is going to go to the bank. She's going to cash the check and get the money. She's walking out. We're going to do a walk and smile, not a walk and talk. And she's going to go to a convenience store. She's going to get so many snacks, not $382.67 worth of snacks, but she's got a lot of snacks. And as she's walking past an alley and she meets a few people there. There's a girl named Judy. There's a guy named Ajax. And then they're asshole friends. That's the rest of them. So Ajax says, now, does Cameron have money and an automobile? She's like, a car? No. Judy says, so do you live near here? Cameron says, no, I work near here. Ajax is like, oh, a job? The day I sell out and get a job is the day I die. Materialistic greed hamsters spinning their wheels. This man is fully and impractically idealistic. And she's like, Cameron says the guy who wants a car. And everybody kind of laughs because, yeah, Ajax kind of busted on that. Judy lets her in on their plans. They're planning to later that night, they're going to go to Yuppie Row. They're going to tag it. And between now and then, I guess we just party in this alleyway, maybe get some vodka. We don't currently have vodka, but that's the plan. Cameron's like, you're going to spend the whole time here? They say, yeah. She says, I've got a better idea. And we're going to see that she looks across the street and sort of kitty corner. There's a hotel called Faux de Vie Hotel, Fake of Life. And they all start walking towards it. So Cam's probably going to use her money, buy a room at the hotel, and basically buy a party for these strangers. So Joe is back in his office, and Debbie is giving him instructions on how to get to Miss Rutherford's. And he doesn't look at all happy about it, but he's like, well, money is money, right? She's like, sure, yeah. She stays out of it. Gordon, outside of his office, is starting to approach the office very tentatively. Debbie says, no, it's okay, you can go in. And Gordon gets as far as sort of putting his hand on the doorknob and he can't do it. He backs away. Brian told him to talk to Joe, but he can't do it. And where is Brian right now anyway? Nowhere to be found. So Gordon chickens out. Joe is still in his office. And we're then going to cut from his face in his office to his face when he is at Lulu's place. He's put on the fakest smile because fake of life, am I right? And Boz is introducing Joe to Lulu and her boy toy, Travis. And, we're exchanging pleasantries. We find out, Joe says he's from the Hudson River Valley. Lulu's like, oh, Travis and I go to New York once a year. We go to the city. I sponsored the opera. We saw Figaro last year. She says, I just hated in that opera when they try to force the poor boy to marry his own mother. And Joe says, well, he owes her money, And he looks at Travis. And there's just this dig, this Figaro dig at Lulu and her relationship with Travis. Now, Lulu did her research and she's going to basically insult them and play hardball straight from the beginning. And she's going to make an offer. She says, yeah, sure. So what'll happen is I'll take 80% of your PC project for $10 million. Now, look, I don't know a thing about these deals. So what I do know is Joe's initial reaction. He grows cold. He's cold as ice. Boz, too, says, well, that's a little aggressive. And this is Boz's relationship, right? Lulu says, hey, look, let's get real. IBM, they poisoned your well. She knows they're desperate. So she's starting off with this. Joe said, hang on, our projected earnings are many multiples of that. As somebody who doesn't know a ton about the numbers they're throwing around or the terms they're throwing around, I needed that information. So it's a very low number. $10 million was the main concern here, I guess, for Joe. And probably for Boz as well. Lulu says, no problem. If you can find a better deal, go ahead and take it. She's making it out like that's her first and final offer. And so Joe's going to pull Boz aside. He's complaining to Boz. Boz is like, let me talk her off the ledge. Let me work my magic. He's the relationship guy, and this is his people. So dinner is served. They're going to walk to dinner. Lulu is going to head off to dinner with Travis on one arm and Joe on the other arm. Okay, so now we go to Donna's office. And Donna is late with the report. She knows that Hunt's already on the phone, and she's got the report in her hand, and she's running to the office, and Hunt must hear her outside. He's on the phone. He opens the door, grabs the report from Donna, and closes the door again. And look, Donna was probably, the amount of time she spent working on Gordon's project probably prevented her from getting this done in a timely fashion, except this is actually her job. Okay, so now we're going to go to Cam in her hotel room. And around this time, I started noticing a really interesting camera choice that was used multiple times for the rest of the episode with just about every character. So Cam is in a hotel room with these strangers. Cam is looking for ways to get inspiration. Cam, again, possibly has never had to deal with breaking through programming block like this before, and certainly not with people breathing down her neck, needing answers from her. So she's just trying to find it. She's trying to find ways to break through it. She didn't want to have to break through it by having sex with Joe. So she's in this hotel room, and We Got Your Money by Big Boys is playing. The camera is at a slightly off angle. And, camera is standing still as strangers are dancing around her. They're getting high, they're getting drunk. Cameron is just taking it in because she's trying to get inspired by something, and she's looking for the thing that's going to do that. And maybe these people are going to help her do that. She starts to dance a little bit by herself, but then she stands still again. Ajax asks what her job is. She tells him software. Some guy named Grimace tips the room service delivery person, but he just throws the money at their feet. So Cameron drinks a little bit of vodka. So Judy hands a bottle of vodka to her. Cameron takes a drink of vodka. As she's watching on TV, there's a milk commercial with a little girl drinking milk, and it says, milk, it tastes great. It felt like a very 80s thing to see on TV. And Cameron, she's not that little of a little girl, but is that person still in there? She's still trying to find her way. I like giving us a little bit of that. Like, she's trying to figure out how to grow up. And actually this little girl on TV is possibly making a better decision than what Cam's trying to make in this moment. Ajax is starting to try to tattoo her. So a lot of mayhem happening here at the hotel room. We go back to dinner. Boz is in the middle of telling the punchline of a highly inappropriate joke. It's basically a joke about Omaha, but faking an orgasm as he says Omaha. Boz, he's the life of the party. He's a big jokester. We often cut to scenes where Boz is giving us a punchline of some sort. And, I guess the joke lands with Lulu to some degree. Lulu turns to Joe, who does not seem to be particularly happy at this table. She's like, well, what do you think about Sally Ride? Because the joke had something to do with space. Joe says, I think the whole thing's a gimmick. Lulu says, so you're not proud of NASA for breaking the gender barrier? Joe says, the Soviets already did it twice. Lulu says, okay, so you're one of those guys who thinks first in or not at all, huh? Which is strange because you're currently cloning an IBM PC. She's not the only character in this show to sort of point out the obvious problem in Joe's logic here. Boz says, oh, go easy on him. He's a Yankee. He's trying to ingratiate himself again with Lulu and sort of make Joe the outsider again. Joe's had about enough of this. He does not like Lulu at all. And he does what he thinks will be tanking the project. He guesses wrong, though. But he says very bluntly, we're not going to be partners. You're a bored, poisonous dilettante with time on our hands and no taste. You make everything about yourself. You rent your friends and you repel everyone else. And he just stares her down. And I think he's thinking, I've insulted her and that's the end of this deal. But the table goes quiet. And he doesn't know that when you push Lulu like this, she's just going to fight back. And she's going to fight back by asserting her dominance directly, like as quickly as she can. She turns to Boz and she says, Boz, we have a deal, right? Boz says, yes, we do. And Joe is, I don't know if it was a feeling of betrayal, but he's just like, he does not like knowing that he has no power at this table. And he doesn't, because he doesn't have the relationship that Boz has with Lulu. So, she turns back to Joe and she just says, no, you see, it's all fine. You just need to know your side of the saddle. And all of this is happening. And Travis, her boy toy, is looking very uncomfortable. He gets up to go get more wine and she says, no, how about you go grab some brandy for us instead? We'll have a little after dinner drink. So we're going to go back to Cam's party. Cam has removed herself from getting her arm tattooed. She's like a quarter of the way done. She's going to go into the bathroom to be alone for a second. Maybe she has an idea. Maybe she grabs some lipstick. She starts writing on the mirror. I've seen people do this in shows. How is it writing with lipstick? I've never attempted this. I've never writing on a mirror with lipstick. I don't know. Okay. But she's trying to get ideas. The whole point of this exercise is that she's trying to get inspiration. But the thing that's really interesting to me about how she's choosing to get this is, look, Kim, she's what, 20, 21, 22. She left college to do this job. Most of the time in college, her options would probably be hang out with the Judys and the Ajaxes and their asshole friends. Like, this is probably the kind of thing she would have access to in college more than a job at Cardiff Electric. So this is, look, I didn't party a lot myself in college, but I can tell you that from what I saw from a lot of people, this was very normal behavior for college students. And people ended up in other people's rooms all the time partying, and people bar hopped, and people met strangers, and it happened a lot. And I was like a weird person who didn't do these things. So I think what they're showing us is maybe by being her age or acting her age, maybe that'll give her some inspiration. Maybe these new people or the way they're behaving or the substance use, whatever, maybe some of it will spark ideas. But she's trying to write on this bathroom mirror, and that's not doing it either. It's not working. And so she's frustrated. We're going to see the camera is really on an angle as Kim leaves the hotel room while everybody else is continuing to party. On her dime, she got the hotel room, she got the vodka, she probably got them the drugs. She's furnished this party, but it was actually all for work, and it's not working. So she leaves. But again, camera totally off center. Something is not working here. So we're going to go back to the whole Lulu house situation. Travis is in a room staring at a bunch of brandy, having absolutely no idea what to do with it. Joe comes in. Travis says, I don't know anything about brandy. Joe seduces him. Joe's first tactic was completely ineffective. He insulted Lulu, and that made Lulu assert her dominance even more. But what about this Travis angle? So Joe seduces Travis. They start doing some rough kissing. Travis is also into it. And they get to a point where they're sort of kissing so roughly, and then Joe sort of backs him up into a chessboard and he knocks all the pieces over. I kind of like the image of that, like or just the idea of that, the symbolism of that. Like Joe's like, okay, we're not doing this chess game anymore. I'm just destroying this. I'm knocking all of the pieces over. Like there is no more, you make this move, I make this move. It's just done. So they are, I mean, we're going to cut from them, but clearly they're about to have sex. And one of the things about this show, I think in some of the reviews, some of the reviewers were like, oh, is this just a gimmick? Are we just making Joe, is this a manipulation? What is this? Joe is bisexual, and Joe, they don't really ever come out and make it a whole thing to say Joe is bisexual. Like Joe doesn't stand on a table and talk about the benefits of being bisexual. Joe just is bisexual. And so we have seen that he's hooked up with Cameron. He is hooking up with Travis. There are going to be some moments in this show where I'm not going to say they make a commentary about it, but they sort of position it a little bit more. But this for Joe is not, it is a manipulation, but also Joe's bi, like that's it. This is not him doing something that's out of character in order to manipulate a situation. It's him doing something we're going to find as in character but it's still to manipulate the situation. Again, he's like, how do I bust this thing up? How do I make this thing not happen with Lulu? Tactic 1 did not work. This is tactic 2, and this was a better guess. We're going to find out in a moment. So we're going to cut from that scene. Some amount of time has passed. Lulu and Boz are still together. The camera is straight up in this moment. We're looking right at Boz. He's got a plate of a meringue pie in his hand, and he is saying, oh, I love meringue. Then the camera switches to a slight angle. We're going to look straight at Lulu. And then the camera switches to a much sharper angle. And we're actually, not only is it going to be at an angle, but the camera is behind Lulu, shooting up from underneath her shoulder as we watch Travis come around. And Travis is, she sees Travis, she says, what took you so long? Travis is all askew. His hair is ruffled. Travis did not get brandy. Travis is holding 2 Coltsworth. And he says, I got 2 Coltsworth instead of brandy. Joe comes in and looks straight at Lulu. He sits down and he says, we decided on a port. He stares at her. It's a stare off. Lulu looks at Travis, sees him, hair all askew, smiling, a little flushed. Lulu is so angry. This is the thing that you do. You can call Lulu whatever names you want. You can tell her we're not doing a deal and she'll do the deal anyway. You mess with Travis, that he was hers. Travis was hers. That's her boy. And now Joe's had him. She knows. And Boz still doesn't seem to have any idea what's happening in the room in this moment. Does he ever? I don't actually know. So we're going to go outside Lulu's. We're going to cut to there, and Boz is angry. He's sort of pacing around. He's like, Lulu, she kicked us to the curb. What happened there? Thought we were doing fine. There's that we had a deal. There seems to be some sort of like a pink filter on the lens here. It doesn't look like golden hour. There is a more pink color of sort of everything in this scene. Joe is saying, look, we don't really need her. Okay, we can jumpstart the project. We will fund this. We're going to find a way to expedite this project from 6 months to 3. We'll do it as fast as we can. We'll build the prototype with our money, and then we will bring that to investors. And that way, you know, there's something more for them to look at. Meanwhile, Travis is staring out at Joe through the window. Joe's going to get in his car, and Boz is going to say, hang on a minute. What did you say to her? What did you do? What did you do, Joe? Would love to get your thoughts between this and I think it's the next episode. For the, you know, for those of you who are watching this show back with me or watching it for the first time, does Joe ever know what happened in that room? I have an interpretation of some things, and I think he doesn't in this moment. Okay, so now we're going to go to Brian. He's driving Gordon home. Brian's in the middle of talking about a card game. Gordon's staring out the window, and then Brian just talks himself into an accident. He just has a car accident with Gordon in the car. Gordon hits his head. He's super frustrated about it. Brian takes absolutely no ownership of this. And he's, I guess, talking about a neighbor's yard. Maybe they were close to home. And he says, I told Vicky they have got to trim those branches. How are you supposed to see cross traffic with the sidewalks a damn jungle? Brian absolutely will not take ownership. Brian just messed up. He just got them into a car accident, and he's blaming his neighbor's branches. So Gordon, it finally hits Gordon. He's heard enough from Brian. He's heard too much from Brian. Gordon turns to Brian and he says, you're fired. You're fired. Says it twice. Gordon does not need orange groves. He doesn't need unique snowflakes. Gordon has evolved in this episode. He's gotten assertive, and he's getting assertive at Brian. And he's like, you're fired. So the thing he just could not get himself to do, he's done it. And he didn't even need to do it. You know, like nobody had ordered him to do it with Brian, but he understood that Brian was a problem and he had had enough of it. He not only fires Brian, he gets out of the car, leaves the door open, and just walks away, walks all the way home. Maybe he was a distance from home because the next time we see him, it's going to be nighttime. I don't know if he had to walk a long way to get there, or if he went somewhere else in the middle. So as he's walking away, we're going to see the car become blurry in the distance. Now we're going to get Cameron. She is ringing Joe's doorbell. She's just, this is it. She's desperate. So she walks into his apartment. She is mid-thought, just blurting out everything she's thinking. She's taking off her jacket. She's like, I need a way to grab the addresses without telling the CPU where to look for them. I need an address book that's also a map. Joe says, hang on, what are you doing here? She says, I'm stuck. It's the most honest she's been with him, really. I mean, she's finally just saying, there is a problem. And she walks to his bedroom, takes off her shirt, and this is how she's going to solve this problem. Now from here, we're going to go to Boz in his office. Boz is looking at a piece of paper, and it looks to me like the code for a roulette program. I don't know a ton about this. I mean, I could see, you know, it was a machine code piece of paper, and it says roulette code, and it shows instructions. And this is probably what he was asking about with the question he asked Cameron earlier. And he's drinking a beer at night. He puts the paper down. He's going to look on his table, which is functioning as a night table, and he sees a picture, a framed picture of his family. He's going to turn off the light and go to sleep. Boz seems to be sleeping at the office, as Cameron had been. And obviously not all is well in Boz's world. Look, he's made a comment to Cam earlier about, if not for Joe, I wouldn't be here. But I think that was a cover for him. I think he was saying, see, Joe's making me stay, because of Joe, I have to work at the office late. But he's not staying there because he's working at the office late. He's just staying there. So, what's happening with his family right now? What's happening with his marriage? Is the financial trouble affecting him? Is it something else? So we are going to now go for a closing scene here. Gordon comes home. It's night. What was he doing in that time between the accident and this? I don't know if it was all walking or if he went somewhere to think. But as he's walking, he hears a bird chirping in the bushes. I would think it's the very same bird that we saw at the beginning of the episode. He comes into the house. Donna sees him. He's bleeding, or he was bleeding, and she remarks on that. Gordon's like, do you hear? The bird's alive. The bird's alive. She says, well, animal control says the kindest thing to do at this point is to kill it. Could you? Gordon is just done. He has killed so many things today. He's got to kill Room. He ended people's jobs. He just fired Brian. He's done. This has been enough. So Gordon says, I am not going back out there. I've had kind of a day. I'm going to kiss the girls. I'm going to wash up. That's what's happening. And I don't know how much she knew about what his day actually entailed, but yeah, this is too much. He's reached his limit. Donna goes into the garage. Remember, she was washing dishes earlier in the episode, cleaning up after everybody. She's now going to have to clean this up after everybody. Donna goes into the garage and she grabs a shovel that says High Plains Hardware on the handle, the title of the episode. She's going to go to the bird outside. It is, in fact, covered in mites. She's going to look into the house. She's going to see Gordon drinking the beer, staring off into the distance. She just shakes her head because this is just her getting worn down to a nub again. She's going to kill the bird with the shovel, but at the point when she goes to do that, just before she raises the shovel, the camera once again, steep angle down at Donna. Everything just feels a little off center with people. Nothing's quite right in the world. Everybody's just a little on an angle right now. Donna kills the bird with a High Plains Hardware shovel. Again, what does the bird stand for? I mean, the bird is the bird. Is the bird also this relationship with Gordon? Is the bird the situation at Cardiff Electric? I think there's a lot of things that are on the ropes. They're kind of dying a slow death here. And Donna kills it. And that is how this episode ends. I'd be really curious to hear from all of you. Tell me more about this bird. I've been talking through it here and I don't know if I landed in the right place. So how do you interpret the bird? How do you interpret Donna killing it? Are there any other camera choices that you spotted here? Because I honestly never really picked up on the whole angle thing until I really started looking at this episode in detail. So there's some cool stuff here. And, for as much as people seem to be like, well, what's Cameron all about? I don't see how what they're doing with Cameron is really different from what they're doing with Gordon. Gordon, too, is struggling. He is in a rut. He's struggling and he is trying to find his way through it. And he's trying to figure out who he should be listening to and who he should not be listening to. So to single Cameron out, I don't know is appropriate, because I think that they're sort of mirroring those characters in a way. They're kind of mirroring everybody right now. Everybody is trying to figure out how to move forward through these massive challenges and major roadblocks that they've now hit. So that is this episode, season 1, episode 3. Now, of course, the music. I do sort of mention names of music as we go through, but let's put a finer point on that here, all in one place, in case you're trying to make your own playlist for it. So the first song we hear is Our Friends Electric. This is, it looks like the 1998 remastered version, but there is a version that sounds pretty similar, at least in parts of it, from 1979. And that song is by Gary Newman and Two Boy Army. And that's when Joe is looking at sort of the array of computers that he's stacked up in his apartment. Then we're going to get Advice by Big Boys, and that's from 1981. Cameron is collecting all the left behind items from the fired employees as that song is playing. Then we're going to get the song Germ-Free Adolescence by X-Ray Specs. This one is from 1978. And that's when Cameron is dancing around the dark office late at night. Then we'll get First Time by The Boys. And that one is from 1977. That's when Cameron is getting money from the bank. And then lastly, we'll get We Got Your Money by Big Boys. That's from 1983. And Cameron and her friends, her new friends, really strangers, are partying in the hotel room. So most of the music that we're hearing here is, or at least, you know, the songs that they've put in that weren't like electronic score music. It's most of it is set to Cameron scenes. Most of it is punk, and you know, a bunch of things from the late 70s in here. My favorite quote, and this is not something I mentioned as I was going through, and that is an oversight on my part, because this is one of my favorite lines in the entire show. For some, I don't know why, it just is a line that I always think about. It really stuck out in my head, and it's a Boz quote where he says, "Venture capital? Hell, I remember when it was still called money." It's when Boz comes back to the office and finds that Joe had set up this meeting with Aaron, the venture capitalist. So Boz saying, "Venture capital? Hell, I remember when it was still called money." Boz is just like, "I don't need you and your fancy New York stuff. I just need money." I don't know. That always got me. Boz wants to keep it simple. Okay. So that is the latest episode, and I am so interested to hear what you thought of this. You know, is this an episode that was slow for you, or is it something that felt like appropriate setup? Do you have new takes on it, you know, based on some of the symbolism that they were showing? You know, for me, I certainly think that this is an important episode. I think you need to show what it looks like when they're at a low point, when you need to show what it looks like for each of these characters when they're trying to rebuild. And it's a moment in the show where everybody's trying to rebuild at the same time. Like all of them are at a low point at the same time. And so it sort of sets a bar for us that we can look back at later as the plot evolves. So I'm continuing to enjoy it, and I can't wait to hear what you think about it, and to then move on to season 1, episode 4. And in the meantime, I hope you all enjoy Halt and Catch Fire. Bye.